Hey friends, welcome back. Today I wanted to shoot a quick video in light of our newest additions to the homestead. If you did not catch that video, make sure you go back to our homestead playlist and look at our last video. So in case you missed it, we recently brought home 17 chicks at the time. We have since lost one. So we have 16 chicks at the moment. So it inspired me to make a video for you guys about 10 things that they don't tell you about chickens, maybe some misconceptions, maybe some things that you might want to know before purchasing your own chickens, before bringing them home, just things that would be good to know about keeping chickens on your homestead. All right, so number one. This is probably the biggest misconception that people have about keeping chickens, and one of the main reasons that they decide to not get chickens or wait until they get to a different location for chickens, and that is that you need a rooster in order to have fresh eggs, and that is not true. You need a rooster for protection if your chickens are out in the open and exposed to predators. A rooster will help keep your chickens, your hens, protected, and they also are needed for fertilizing your eggs. So if you plan on hatching out your own chickens from the eggs that your hens lay, then yes, you will need a rooster. But for just having fresh eggs to put on your table every week, you do not need a rooster. With that said, hens will still make some type of noise, so they're not completely quiet. They still cackle, they sing their egg song whenever they lay an egg, so they're not completely silent. You can't hide them in a suburban neighborhood that has an HOA that strictly restricts chickens and think that you can get away with it, unless you have really cool neighbors, which where there's a will, there's a way. But number one, you do not have to have a rooster to have fresh eggs. Number two, most people expect that when they get chickens that they're going to have an abundance of fresh eggs every single day and they will never have to buy eggs again from the store. Now, that may be true depending on the amount of chickens that you get and the amount of eggs that your family goes through in the week. For us, that has not been the case, and for many, that has not been the case. So, chickens lay according to the seasons and according to the light. So, whenever you have days that are darker than others, like today is a very dark and overcast day, so there's a high possibility that my chickens will not all lay today. The more light that they have in a day, the more likely they will lay their eggs. So they're on a light cycle every single day. So you'll notice that in the winter months, whenever the days are shorter, your chickens will lay less often. And then in the spring, when the days start getting a little bit longer, they'll lay more often. The heat can also affect this. So in the dead heat of summer, you might notice a decrease in your egg production. Also, something that plays a factor in this is the breed type. So each breed of chicken is known for different traits and qualities, and there are specific breeds that are known for their heavy egg production. For us, our most solid egg layers are our red sex links or Rhode Island Reds. They have pretty much laid every single day since they started laying, which typically a hen will start laying between 4 to 5 months, and they have only taken a few breaks here and there. I have one sapphire gem who laid pretty heavily in the very beginning when we had a rooster that she grew up with, and once the rooster left, she became the head chicken in charge. So she went through a hormonal change that actually caused her to think that she's a rooster, and so she stopped laying eggs. Here recently she has laid a couple here and there, but it's very unlikely that we get eggs from her, as well as our Silky, who lays, you know, a handful of eggs a year. She's more for show. So you'll get to know different breeds and see which ones are known for their egg production. If that's something that you're after, then make sure that you seek that out before you purchase your chickens. For me, in the beginning, I wanted a very mixed breed flock, just different colors and shapes and sizes. And now that we've been homesteading for a little while, from here on out, I will be probably singling it down to one breed just for egg laying and one breed for meat production, and then every once in a while maybe one or two for fun. Number two, like I said, you may not have eggs every single day. They have their seasons, and when it's good, and when it's not, they're just pets that you're feeding for free. Okay, so speaking of my alpha female hen, there is something that's called pecking order. You may have heard of this already, and if not, it is my third topic of today. Chickens naturally have a pecking order, so from the very beginning they will establish who the strongest, the biggest, the one that's in charge will be, and that is typically a rooster. And you'll have your stronger roosters and your weaker roosters, and then you'll have your alpha females and your weaker females. In this pecking order, you will notice that the alphas will peck and scratch and beat up on the ones that are smaller than them or under them in the order. They will be the first ones to go to bed and get the pick of their sleeping area. They're the first ones that get fed. They are typically the protectors as well. And then you have the ones that are at the bottom of the pecking order that just kind of stay in the shadows and come in for the cleanup once everybody else has had their turn. This kind of makes it a little bit difficult to bring new chickens into your flock. It's usually recommended to bring more than one at a time so that they can bond and have each other to look out for one another. So there's a whole process for introducing new chickens to your flock that should be taken into consideration. So one thing that's really important to consider is the pecking order. We just recently rehomed our little fluffy rooster that you might have seen in some of our past videos. He was actually at the very bottom of the pecking order next to our other silky female, but he, trying to be a rooster, would try to dominate some of the females, and all of my hens were twice his size and twice as gangster, so they would whoop up on him and ended up kind of hurting him pretty bad. So I decided to go ahead and rehome him. It wasn't safe for him here. We really don't need a rooster here. He was just more fun to look at. But anyways, pecking order is not something that is just common with chickens. The word was originated with chickens, hence the name pecking order. But you will see this with other animal breeds as well. I've noticed it with my ducks in the past, with my goats, and you might even notice with your domesticated animals, your dogs, your cats. Everybody has their place in line. It's just kind of the animal way. All right, so number 4 is that chickens can get sick. Just like any other animal, they are susceptible to different diseases and problems. They are typically pretty hardy, and again, depending on your breed and your location, some chickens do better in different climates. One of the most life-threatening things that you do need to look out for is coccidia, which usually affects your younger chickens, your chicks. It is an intestinal disease that can kill them rather quickly because it does dehydrate them and keeps them malnourished. So that can be treated through medicated chick starter, and then there is a plethora of holistic approaches to that. Thankfully, we have not experienced that. Just had a chicken slip right out of the fencing. Hey, you're on the wrong side. Another thing to look out for and be aware of are mites. Chickens can be prone to all types of parasitic mites that can get in their bedding. They can get up underneath their scales and just really irritate them. It's not usually life-threatening, but it is very uncomfortable for them, and should be watched out for. Another thing is something called bumblefoot, which is actually kind of like a splinter or a wart in the bottom of their foot. Usually they get a scratch or something gets stuck in their foot, and then it festers and can turn into an infection and actually end up causing infection in their bloodstream. So it could get really dangerous really fast. You'll notice if they're hobbling around, wobbling around, just acting like they don't put a lot of pressure on their foot. So be aware of that. That is something that can be treated, again, through holistic measures, and there are ways to remove the splinter and treat the area, but that is something to be aware of. Chickens can get egg bound. This can happen when the egg gets caught inside of their vent area and doesn't come out properly, and it can leave the chicken in a lot of distress. There are ways to prevent this from happening as well. That's making sure that you are providing plenty of calcium to make sure that the shells of their eggs are good and hard, making sure they have a proper diet, that sort of thing. If it does happen, you can help them to pass the egg through Epsom salt baths and massage maneuvers. It is not the prettiest process, but being egg bound is life-threatening and does need to be removed for the sake of your chicken. So be aware of that. Respiratory infections are another slightly common thing to be on the lookout for, just because of how chickens are kept inside of a coop where a lot of dust and debris can sit, and the ammonia from their poop and those sorts of things, it can cause them to have lung issues. And the biggest way to prevent this is to not overcrowd your coop. You want to have plenty of room for each chicken that's staying in there, and you want good, proper ventilation, and you need to keep your coop as clean as possible. So those are things that are preventative measures. Once they have contracted a respiratory infection, there are over-the-counter medical ways to treat, and there are holistic ways as well. So the best thing to do is prevent any of these things from happening in the first place, so that you don't have to treat them on the back end. There are several other chicken illnesses and diseases to be aware of, but these are the most common ones that you come across. So just be aware that chickens can get sick just like any other creature. With that being said, I'm going to wrap number 6 and 7 into one. Some things that will help to prevent some of these issues that can happen are providing adequate grit for your chickens. I did speak on this in the chick video that I posted this past weekend, but providing a source of grit for your chickens is very important. You might not need to if your ground is good and sandy. They can pick it up off the ground themselves, but if not, you can provide some free choice crushed oyster shells. I've even used regular seashells from the beach. I've cracked them with a hammer and made them into a fine powder for them, and just leave it out on the ground or next to their food or whatever. This helps them to break down their food better in their crop. It helps to harden their eggs. Do you mind? It helps to prevent pasty butt, which I'll touch on in just a second. So grit is very important, important enough to make it onto my top 10 list. Next would be dust baths. This is something that chickens naturally do. It's their way of protecting themselves from things like the mites and other skin issues. So you might find your chickens rolling around in dirt, digging holes in the sand and wallowing in them, flipping it up on top of their feathers. This is a natural line of defense for them against parasites and other skin disorders. Cat's trying to get in. Okay, I messed up and said 6 and 7 for the last two, but it was actually 5 and 6. So now, number 7. Speaking of taking care of your chickens, preventing any kind of sickness or disease from happening, chickens do require maintenance. You can't just let them stay outside and fend for themselves. Though they are very self-sufficient for the most part, you do have to intervene every once in a while. Mostly when they are chicks first starting out, you will have to do some maintenance, such as checking their butts for pasty butt, which is something that I mentioned. I did come across this morning whenever I checked my chicks. I was cleaning out their brooders and I saw that 2 of them had the start of pasty butt. So it is something that is very important to watch out for because it is life-threatening as well. If you think about it, food in must come out, and if the hole is blocked, then it's bad news for the chicken. So it's very easy to take care of. You just keep an eye on them regularly. You can remove it with a rag and some warm soapy water. I like to add some oil, like olive oil or coconut oil, because it helps to break down the stickiness of their poop on their butt, and it helps to remove it from their feathers a little bit better. Another way to prevent that is to provide that chick grit. Not all chickens will eat the chick grit because they don't know, so it is something that you do need to stay on top of while they're little. And also you can put a splash of apple cider vinegar inside of their water. That helps with a plethora of different sicknesses, and it's just a good routine thing to do, maybe once a month once they get a little bit older. Just a little bit here and there can help with their internal health and is very important. You may have seen in our spa day video from a couple of weeks ago where we had to clip our little white silkie's beak that had overgrown. It's actually about time to do it again. This is not something that you typically have to do with chickens, but you will have your problem children every once in a while where you have to trim their beaks or their toenails, their feathers, those sorts of things if they're flying over your fencing. If their toenails are crossed or causing them any kind of irritation, or if they're chipped or breaking, if their beak is preventing them from eating, those sorts of things, those are times that we have to intervene, so be prepared for that. One thing that I was unaware of that is a really gross job but also has to be done for sanitary reasons is trimming butt feathers. Just like with pasty butt, they poop, stuff gets dropped onto their butt feathers. Their butt is actually where the softest feathers are on their body, and it tends to collect some of the waste, especially if they have a soft poo every once in a while. Now, why would we want to trim these? First of all, it's gross to look at. Second of all, it does attract like flies or other kinds of parasites, so we need to keep them clean. And third of all, if you are collecting eggs that also come out of the same hole, you're more likely to have poopy eggs, and that's probably the last thing that you want to pick up and have for breakfast. So removing the butt feathers whenever you see poop starting to collect on them is something that you might want to consider. It's not something that's done very regularly. Some of my 2-year-old chickens, I've only had to do it one time in their lifetime, and it's something I just glove up, get the scissors, and just take care of it, and then we have clean, healthy butts and eggs. Number 8, chickens have been around for thousands of years. They have learned how to survive. They originated near jungle areas, so their natural instinct is to climb, actually jump, fly, or roost to get away from predators, and also to keep themselves safe at nighttime. So this is a natural instinct that chickens have. At nighttime, whenever they go to bed, they automatically look for something they can jump up on. So inside of your coop, you will need to provide something that they can roost on. They will sleep on the floor, but prefer to be up off the ground. Providing a roost for them is very important for them. Excuse the poop. Lots of poop. All the time. If for some reason your coop is blocked and they cannot get in, check in a nearby tree or bush or fence post. They are likely to have hidden themselves up high off the ground. Like I said, this is just a natural instinct. It is something to be aware of when you're constructing your coop, and it will also help to keep them a little more clean. As you could see from my coop, they poop a lot, especially at nighttime while they're sleeping. It's just a lot of poop accumulates, so keeping them up off the floor, off the poop while they're sleeping is very important. So don't forget to add roosts to your coop. You're not a chicken. You're not a chicken. You need some attention, huh? You need some attention. Number 9, chickens can go broody. This is also a natural instinct. It is more likely and more common in certain breeds. Over the years, there have been people that have bred chickens in a way that they have removed the broody instinct from them. There are some breeds that are known to be more broody than others. Broodiness is where a hen decides that she wants to be a mother and wants to hatch out some eggs. This can happen whether you have a rooster or not. So they will put themselves on strike, stop laying eggs, and sit on a clutch of eggs. And it's typically for the full incubation period, which is about 21 days. Broodiness is also contagious. So if you have other chickens in your flock that are prone to go broody, if one goes broody, then they all go broody. This is a great thing if you are trying to hatch out eggs yourself. You can keep some fertilized eggs under them during that time, which is something that we had to do last summer because we could not break our hens from their broodiness. But if you are in it for the egg production, don't have a rooster, aren't trying to hatch eggs, this can be kind of annoying at times. So the best way to break a broody hen is to get her up off of her butt and keep her from sitting on her eggs. So you might have to isolate them in a kennel or a fenced area that doesn't have something that she can make a nest and sit on. We tried a few different techniques, including putting a cold water bottle up underneath her, and eventually we just caved and got some fertilized eggs from a different farm and placed them underneath our chickens and hatched out more chickens, which we really didn't want at the time, but it was the only way to break our girls of this period and move on with our lives. So when a chicken is broody, they will get feisty. If you try to remove them, if you try to check eggs, they might peck at you, they'll hack up their feathers, they'll cackle at you. They can be a little bit intimidating. So broodiness is something that you want to consider. If you don't want to deal with this, you can look for the breeds that are known to be less broody. If this is something that you're interested in, then you might want to look for breeds that are more broody. But broodiness is something definitely to consider before you start a flock of your own. last but not least, number 10, chickens are the gateway animal for a homestead. What I mean by this is that even though this list sounds lengthy and very hands-on, it's actually not. Once you have your chickens established, their regular maintenance is you come out, make sure they have food and water, make sure they have clean environment, collect the eggs, lay your eyes on them, make sure nobody looks sickly or hurt. But other than that, they do kind of take care of themselves, and they provide you with food in return. Once you have chickens, you start to realize, hey, this isn't so bad. I'm not having to put that much work in there with them. I'm getting a return for my efforts. They're relatively low maintenance. So then you start to think, well, if I've mastered chickens and can handle them, why not ducks? Why not turkeys? Why not goats? Why not a horse or a cow or a pig? So beware if you think that you're just going to have chickens and stop there, that you don't want any other creature on your homestead. Just know that once you have chickens and learn to enjoy them and have a good routine down with them, you'll be looking for another creature in the future. I promise. So I hope you enjoyed this list that I put together for you guys. This is my personal top 10 things that I wish they would have told me about having chickens. These 10 items would have affected my decision about what breeds I got, what time of the year I got them, how many I would have got them, how I would have changed my coop setup, all those sorts of things. So maybe you can learn from a few of my mistakes and a few of the things that I've learned over the years. There are so many other things about chickens. They are very multifaceted, and it's kind of one of those things that you just learn as you go. But hopefully these are some things that will help you when you're first starting off. We love our chickens. Like I said, once we had them and realized how productive they were and how fun they are to sit and watch, they're very entertaining. They all have their own personalities. We have decided that we will probably always have chickens. As long as we have a homestead, they will be on it. So hope this helps you as you're gearing up for getting your spring chickens here soon, and hope this helps answer some questions. If there's anything else that comes up that you would like to know about chickens, please leave it in the comments below and I'll do my best to get you an answer. But that's it for today. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video.